Nata for the sound of the bell. Mind calm, body at ease, breathing quiet, sentiment benevolent. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Om Amoga Vairochana Mahamudra Mani Padma Jvala Pravartaya
Please stand and join me in chanting of the refuge. We will take refuge in Buddha Dharma Sangha, first in Sino-Korean and then in English. So please throw your voice in as best you can. 심 귀명네 시한 삼세 제만 차해 상주 일체 부자야 Song Il Che Dhammayam Shum Chi Quim Yone Shiva Samse Chema Chame Song Chu Il Che Sangaya I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
And realize the great way.
And realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
And now we offer a dedication to our ancestors. On this 15th day of June, 2025, we acknowledge that this land where our temple buildings stand has been the home of Native peoples, the Potawatomi, the Odawa, the Ojibwe, the Council of the Three Fire Tribes, and also of Black Americans. We know that this neighborhood used to be a historically Black neighborhood during times of sanctioned racial segregation and oppression. For our own awakening and for the awakening of all life, may the benevolent energies of our meditation, chanting, and full presence here at this service this morning extend to all beings on this planet and throughout time and space. May there be a deepening of our interbeing. May peace prevail and wars cease. Let's make 3 bows to the altar. Please be seated for another shorter period of meditation. please follow along as we do some mindful stretching. Please sit comfortably. So good morning, everyone, on this lovely summer morning. I'm curious, today's Father's Day, so how many of you here are fathers? Several of you. How many of you came with your father? Yay, thank you. Thank you for coming and honoring your father to be together today. So we're going to draw together a couple of different themes today. And at first they may seem unrelated, but bear with me. Hopefully we'll get to where we need to go. So let's start with an important summer celebration. So yesterday, if you were in Ann Arbor, downtown Ann Arbor, there were about 20,000 people. So much going on at once. So it was Asian Day at the farmer's market. there was a block party at the YMCA. There was a No Kings event, and there was a Juneteenth celebration. So in all of that, I think Juneteenth may have gotten just a little bit lost. So I wanted to kind of start there. So in 2021, Juneteenth became a federal holiday. The date of this holiday is June 19th. This year it will be on a Thursday. And this event marks, it's one of the important markers of the end of slavery in the US. In Galveston, Texas, federal troops arrived and informed the slaves that they were freed. But guess what? That had happened 2 years earlier in the Emancipation Proclamation. So Galveston may not have been the very last place that got the word, but they were one of the last big places. And so we mark that day with celebrations. And some of the elements of the celebration, I've not been to one yet, so I'm going to try to go to one this year. But my understanding is some of the elements of the celebration are, music, good food, the color of red in particular. So you can find strawberries and red things to drink and red food, all this kind of stuff. And then reading of the Emancipation Proclamation, also readings of poems that are very cherished by the community. And I've chosen one of those poems as sort of the bridge to our broader topic today, which will be lineage. So this is a poem by Margaret Walker. My grandmothers were strong. They followed plows and bent to toil. They moved through the fields sowing seed. They touched earth and grain grew. They were full of sturdiness and singing. My grandmothers were strong. My grandmothers are full of memories, smelling of soap and onions and wet clay, with veins rolling roughly over quick hands. So I like that the title of this poem is Lineage. It talks about our ancestors. And for the enslaved people, they were kind of robbed of their lineage. Lineage was stolen. And so they had to create their own version. And one of the elements clearly was this inner strength and inspiration that they gave to each other. So this poem celebrates grandmothers. It could be written about mothers and fathers. And today in particular, we're talking about fathers because it's Father's Day. So there's another story now about fathers. This has to do with the Buddha. So the Buddha had a father. His name was King Sudana. And at that time, the child was named Siddhartha. So when Siddhartha was born, a fortune teller came and said, this child, these are going to be a great ruler or will be a great spiritual leader. King Sudana was royalty. He was head of a Shakya clan. And so, of course, he wanted his son to grow up and be a ruler. So he did everything that he could to protect little Siddhartha from sort of the cruel realities of life, so he wouldn't be tempted to go off and do spiritual things. However, eventually, that's what the Buddha did. So the Buddha went out of the palace and he saw an old man, a sick man, a dying man, and then encountered a wandering monk. The Buddha did have obligation to his family, his father. Obligations included learning all about ruling a tribe, ruling the Shakya clan. Probably he had to learn weaponry, lots of other things. But one of his obligations was to produce an heir, back to this idea of lineage, because the son's obligation to the father is to produce another son to keep the lineage, the patriarchy going. And so he did that. He married, and his wife was ready to give birth. And then on the night that his son was born, Siddhartha left the palace and went on his spiritual journey. So he had fulfilled his obligation of producing an heir. Does anybody know what the Buddha named his son? Yeah. Rahula. What does Rahula mean? Rahula means fetter. Interesting. So here is this idea that family is a hindrance. And I suppose it is if you're going on a spiritual journey like this. So the Buddha went on his journey. As we all know, he eventually attained enlightenment, became a very great teacher. And at some point, he came back to get his son, Rahula, but that was somewhat later. The Buddha, having left his biological family, his that type of lineage, created his own lineage. He is a family of choice, so to speak. I think we can relate to this because all of us sort of end up in families of choice these days. So the Buddha's family of choice included monks and later some nuns. And it was based on sort of following these pure precepts, these pure rules for living together in a wholesome way that leads to cultivation of meaningful interpersonal relationships and meaningful interconnections. When somebody becomes a monk or nun, it's said that they are son of Buddha or daughter of Buddha. So in essence, you have a new family and you live by the family rules. And within this family, there is a hierarchy, a pecking order. If you look at our Sangha here today, we're a family of Buddha. We have our own hierarchy and pecking order to keep things running smoothly. So and it was based on when you were ordained. So the monks who came first were the most senior, those who came later were more junior. It didn't matter your age at all. So the Buddha's last disciple, which he received when he was dying, was quite old, but he was the most junior of all. So we have now a biological lineage, family of choice lineage, and also then lessons from the Buddha about filial piety. Does anybody know what that is? Yeah.
It's piety towards your parents, I think.
Yeah, it's sort of piety, it's obligations to parents. And so when the Buddha talked to lay practitioners, he did talk about the importance of filial piety and maintaining filial piety. And so he highlighted the fact that parents they're forever in their debt. Children are forever in their debt to their parents because parents give them life and support them by providing food, education, material needs. And so as a result, the children have this obligation to respect and serve their parents. So acts of filial piety include obeying one's parents' wishes, taking care of them when they're old, working to provide them with material comforts, such as food, money, or pampering. But the Buddha also said, you can repay your parents by making offerings to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha and upholding precepts, by giving and cultivating blessings. And if you do these things, you are being a filial child. So it depends on your relationship with your father, with your parents, how you choose to honor them. Just to sort of read a little bit more about what the Buddha said about filial piety. And by the way, I think Father's Day fits within this category of filial piety. Because there are two persons that cannot easily be repaid, because he's referring to monks. What two? One's father and mother. Even if one should carry about one's mother on one shoulder and one's father on the other, and while doing so, should have a lifespan of 100 years, live for 100 years, and if one should attend to them by anointing them with balms, by massaging, bathing, and rubbing their limbs, and even if they void their urine and excrement there, one would have not done enough for one's parents, nor would one have repaid them. Even if one were to establish one's parents as supreme lords and rulers over this great earth, abounding in the 7 treasures, one would still not have done enough for one's parents, nor would one have repaid them. For what reason? Parents are of great help to their children. They bring them up, feed them, and show them the world. But because when one's parents lack faith, one encourages, settles, and establishes them in faith. If, when one's parents are immoral, one encourages, settles, and establishes them in virtuous behavior. If, when one's parents are miserly, one encourages, settles, and establishes them in generosity. If, when one's parents are unwise, one encourages, settles, and establishes them in wisdom. In such a way, one has done enough for one's parents, repaid them, and done more than enough for them. So this idea is whatever circumstance you come with is your obligation to move that perhaps to the next level. So now let's bring the theme back to Father's Day in the here and now. And as I think about my lineage that I received from my father, he's a very sort of quiet, solid kind of person. He was a World War II veteran. So he had been through much trauma in his life. He flew airplanes carrying the wounded from one place to another. He never ever spoke of these events. That was too private, too deep. So he was one perhaps who disguised his emotions more than he should. And that's maybe one thing I learned from my father. And if he were here, perhaps I would invite him to do more sharing. But other things I learned from my father, he was a family man. And so every year he was able to arrange that my mother and my brother and I would go on a vacation somewhere, often in a camper, often to a state or a national park. And so I do have this love of our park system. He taught us how to catch fireflies in jars. We would go out and do that. Be sure you poke holes in the top of those jars. And you can enjoy the fireflies, and then you have to release them. And on every Sunday evening, we had a family time that involved popcorn and fudge. And popcorn and fudge, and we watched a show called Bonanza. Does anybody here remember that? Oh my gosh, yeah, that was kind of the Wild West. So all of these things I got from my father, and I felt very lucky to have been in sort of a lineage that was wholesome. He always encouraged his kids to get education. He was among the first in his family to go to college on the GI Bill, and he wanted his kids to go to college, so we all did. And then when I wanted to continue on to graduate school, he encouraged that, supported me sort of the whole way, and taught me life lessons about managing finances, managing a career, all this kind of stuff. So that's what I got from my father. One of his wishes was that I would find a spiritual home that was meaningful to me. That did not happen during his lifetime, but it did happen later. And so now I have this family of choice, and I'm able to enjoy the lineage and the benefits of this Buddhist family of choice. So that's sort of my ruminations on Father's Day. And now I'm very curious to hear from you. Two things. Number one, what's one thing that you learned from your father? And number two, how are you going to honor your father today, whether your father is living, deceased, whether you have a good relationship with your father, whether you have a bad relationship with your father? I would like to hear your thoughts. And so, yes, let's pass the microphone. Who would like to start?
So I actually had seen my dad over the weekend. He's had some health issues, so I was going to be a support to him, and in addition to Father's Day. So I think for me, a lot of that is just showing up and witnessing things, even when they're difficult, and caring for people during hard times, the way they've cared for you throughout your life. I would say one thing that my dad always said was actually something his mom repeated, was she would say, do all things in moderation. She was raised Buddhist and converted to Christianity as an adult. So I think a lot of the lessons I have from her really speak to this middle path, and I know that really guides my dad's life, and also the focus on caring for family and self-sacrifice, without drawing attention to that loyalty. So thank you.
My dad right here, he's always prioritizing like me and Sissy's happiness and our well-being, and he's always doing things we like to do. So today we're gonna do stuff he likes to do, and I'm really happy he's my dad.
Ah, so you're going to do stuff he likes to do today. Thank you.
Thanks. Hey, good morning, everybody. My dad, my biological dad, passed away quite a long time ago. But he was very funny. He was a deeply funny guy, and he had a way of sort of getting, it didn't matter how serious or curmudgeonly you were, he could kind of get a laugh out of you. And people loved him for it. And I think it was a great skill that he could bring to challenging situations, that levity and kind of that breaking the ice. And today I'm lucky enough to have a stepdad and a father-in-law. And they're both a bit more serious than my dad was, in a way that I try to both honor him and show love to my stepdad and my father-in-law is by trying to bring some of that levity. I can't quite put the stank on it that my dad did, but it's helpful to remember that person that he was and try to kind of reflect some of that light. Yeah.
Good morning. The lesson I learned from my father was never abandon your children because they are emotionally scarred as a result. My dad left my mom with 7 of his children in the 50s. And the truth is, I was able to draw from my mother's strength, courage, endurance, and love. She kept us safe. She kept us healthy. She kept us secure till he returned. And the relationship was never the same. I vowed that I would never, ever leave my daughter. And that's the lesson I learned, how important a father is to a small child. One day he's there, next day he decided he wanted to go live somewhere else. And I seen my mother sacrifice. And I honor her sacrifice by the way I live today. Thank you.
So my maternal grandfather, actually my street name is his last name, so I go by Logan. That's my middle name. Had a real profound impact on me. And for reasons kind of not worth getting into, one of the weird goals of his life was like he wanted me to do well, but he explicitly wanted to be forgotten. And so I try to do little things just to remember the lessons he taught me. And so sometimes people think like I do knife sharpening, and I have a lot of interest, but people always kind of, so I shouldn't say always, they often feel weird about that one, but it was because he really valued tools, and he was always explicitly valued keeping his knives sharp. And I'm not the sharpener he was. He could do much more with much less than I can. But fundamentally, that's why I do it. I do it to keep a little bit, at least that part that I know he wouldn't mind keeping going alive.
So my father is definitely a very hard topic for me. It's I have a lot of negative emotions that come up when I think of my father, though at the same time, I have to admit he has taught me a lot through a lot of his negative qualities, that, money isn't everything, that anger is poison, that generosity is the cure to stinginess. So I am very grateful for him. I can't say that I don't hold some resentment in my heart, but I really work through a lot of the anger and come out on the other side and realize, inside he's just a small child, the same we all are, trying to figure out life and coming from a completely different world of Soviet Lithuania. So it is what it is, and I'm still very grateful for him.
As tends to be the case when I request this microphone, I often have a lot to say about the topic at hand, and this one is no different. So I will try to keep my comments brief. I think there are 4 people in my life who I could consider fathers in some way, shape, or form. my biological father I never met. He and my mother were divorced before I was born. He fought. He was in the army, and very, very, very long story. Very, very, very short. Things didn't work out between them.
Speak just a little bit louder,
Yes.
please. Thank you.
Yeah. Things didn't work out between them, and he lived his days. He went to live his days in Kentucky with his second family. We lived our lives up here in Michigan. He was succeeded by a man I think of as my stepfather, who worked very, very hard and taught us. That was the thing I learned from him the most, was a work ethic. He says, you will never be outworked by anybody. Be the first one to show up and the last one to leave. Make sure that of the things that they might say about you, that your passion and your dedication should be the first on that list. Then I suppose, as a sidebar, I then myself became a father, who then tried to balance the lessons that I learned from them in fathering my own children, which I did in various ways, some better than others. It sort of resulted in the relationships with these other two men, who was one of whom was my ex-wife's biological father, who was also now deceased, and from whom she was also estranged at a very early age. Again, lots of things I could say about that, but yeah, these scars to which that were alluded to before were very real, both on myself and on the woman who is now my ex-wife. We both felt and lived those scars as well, and in various ways. Those scars left on us by those men resulted in a large way in our own falling out, and in a way having to leave those scars on my son as well. That was the one lesson I tried to take from my biological father, was not to repeat that cycle. And in a sense, I both failed and succeeded. Again, in the longer version of that story, I could tell you sometime. But that also dovetails into the fourth man who is still among us. Her stepfather, Dale Norgan, who did, a very hard man, lived his very hard life. He's a Marine, and did his best to try and soften this for his daughters. Another success and failure, and left some scars of his own. And that was, so again, to kind of, by way of kind of wrapping up, there's a lot I could say about fatherhood and lineage, and the legacies and the scars and the pain and the pleasures and the lessons that are passed on. It's a story of karma, ultimately. And it's a story of a lot of people trying their level best to do what they'd like to, and to do what they must. And I can see how, for the Buddha, who himself left his family and in search of a way to make the world a better place, I can see why in his Dharma, the lesson is to do that, to just, do the best you can, make this world as good a place as you can, and that's essentially the best way we can honor our fathers, our brothers, our lineage, and ourselves, by transforming this great world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Did you want to go? My father is oftentimes more like a peer to me, I feel. He hasn't lived in my house for, well, he and my mother got divorced like 8 years ago now, and I mostly live with my mom. And when I do go over, it's often like he's more of an older brother to me. I have a good relationship with him, and I very much love my dad, but it's interesting how I kind of feel like sometimes I father myself a little bit, but also I do feel like I can draw some things from him, especially in his less admirable moments where we're saying to honor your father, or the figure of your father, or the idea of your father, is to take on some wisdom from their faults and their blemishes and their qualities that you don't want to pass on to future generations in the world. I think that it's a very interesting thing.
My dad definitely still challenges me, and you know, there are still times where instead of pulling into my parents' driveway, I'll just drive away. And but I learned a lot from my dad. I mean, my dad taught me how to march to the beat of my own drum, and my dad taught me how to cook. And you know, my dad is a guitar player and was a luthier, and I love bluegrass because of my dad. And even though I've gone through moments of maybe trying to be more or less estranged from him, I think that I know that there's still a big part of him in me, and the way that I shaped up to become a person. And I think that I can say in this moment that I really love my dad, regardless.
Hi. Just hearing everybody talk and reflecting on my dad who passed a year and a half ago. And I've had some, I guess, grief related to that. He had a really hard time accepting many aspects of me and my life. But I realized as I am hearing everybody talk that that he was split between his mind and his heart. He had this way of being really present and playful and loving and forgiving and light and generous and fun. And then when he tried to live up to the expectations, the thoughts of what he was supposed to be doing, what he was supposed to be believing in, how he was supposed to be acting, that is where he had difficulty accepting people, had difficulty accepting me, had difficulty accepting diversity, had difficulty accepting different beliefs and ideas. But in the moment, right in front of any person, he was he was really, really open, really treated everybody who was right in front of him as himself. He treated people really generously and lovingly, and I think until today that's confused me since his death, because I've felt so sad for the distance that developed over time when each aspect of myself, appeared to him that he disagreed with. We became farther and farther apart. But when we would spend time together, it was as if none of those things were true, or like were existing, or like were a problem. It was like right in the moment. Yeah, he was really beautiful and taught me a lot about living from that place. So thank you.
So thank you for your sharings. And I would encourage you today to celebrate Father's Day in some way, even if your father's not living, or maybe you can consider yourself your own father, something like that. And also Juneteenth, Thursday, don't forget, and see if you can join one of those celebrations. So with that, let's say, oh, I'm sorry, yes? I'm sorry?
Do you know what Juneteenth celebrations are being held?
I do not specifically. That is a very good question. But if you go online, yes, somebody?
There's one in Wheeler Park by Depot Street.
Thank you.
In Ann Arbor.
On the 19th, right?
I think it started yesterday.
Oh, okay. So all week long?
I believe so.
Wonderful. Okay. Let's say the four great vows. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Blind passions, one root, I vow to terminate. Dharma gates, one mind, I vow to penetrate. The great way of Buddha, I vow to realize. Announcements, please. Microphone, please. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone this morning. Please come introduce yourself after the service. We'll be in the foyer serving tea. Here are some things coming up on our calendar. Our teachers will be away from the temple from June 26th to July 7th to attend the summer retreat and society meetings on our farm in upstate New York. And we're excited to announce that 3 of our seminary students will be ordained as teachers during the society meetings. And they are Mosamsam and Tongsan and myself.
Bhavana.
Oh, it says Tongsan.
I know.
Yeah, that's right. Tongsan was ordained last year.
It's an error that won't go away.
Mosamsam, Bhavana, and me. Thank you. And so the temple will continue to hold Sunday services during that time. There will still be other teachers here. And so we'll still have Sunday services. The programs that are on hiatus for the summer include the Tuesday yoga and the introductory meditation classes. Those will both resume again in September. And so Ann Arbor Temple programs that will occur this summer include regular Sunday services at 10 a.m., Together Action, which is every Saturday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. This work practice is aimed at helping us maintain our buildings and grounds, and we consider hands-on work to be a vital aspect of our Buddhist practice. As we care for the temple, we care for ourselves. And it's also a nice opportunity to meet other members of the Sangha and talk with them. So that's every Saturday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. It's often working on the garden. There will be a day of mindfulness on Saturday, August 9th, and the schedule begins at 9 a.m. on Saturday, February 16th, and includes periods of sitting meditation.
August 9th.
Wow. Okay. Obviously, we need to just double check these before we yeah. It's Saturday, August 9th. Includes periods of sitting meditation, walking, mindful work practice, rest, and simple stretching with a delicious vegetarian lunch at midday, all concluding by 5 p.m. 5 p.m.? 5 p.m. Okay. Our temple holds online Sangha service every Sunday night from 7 to 8:30 p.m. This service joins with practitioners from our sister temples in Toronto and New York, as well as those living at a distance in Chicago also. The Zoom link is located on our website at www.zenbuddhisttemple.org. We will have together action today for 15 minutes, meeting in the front yard right after the service, and that will be led by Samoan over here. So you can find him in the front yard. We'll pull some weeds and get to talk with other members of the Sangha. And the temple is entirely supported by your generous donations of time and money. There's a fishbowl right outside the door here if you wish to make a monetary donation. If you wish to volunteer your time, the Together Action on Saturday afternoon is a good way to do that. And if you have any questions, come and talk to any of us wearing the gray, and we will do our best to answer your questions.
So let's stand, take good care of your mat and cushion, and then face the altar for our concluding vows.